Hello, everybody. My name is Ethan. Welcome to Creature Guide Live Daily News. Now, let's get into the prehistoric and current animal news of the day. And feel free to stick in any comments about prehistoric or current animals in the chat.
Sorry,
So,
I did
from
that.
from Sci News, Dipronosaurus Triassic reptile had huge claw. 212 million year old fossils discovered in New Mexico confirmed that Drepanosaurus, which, by the way, I'm not familiar with this animal, so it sounds like it's already been discovered. A late Triassic tree dwelling reptile was a small bodied creature with a fearsome finger. The second digit of its forelimbs sported a huge claw. Let's see what they're talking about. See if maybe it resembles any other species of not just dinosaurs, but even certain other lineages of proto mammals or earlier reptiles or even later mammals with large claws. Well, this almost reminds me of a ground sloth to an extent. And in some cases, like certain types of modern day and like Oligocene or Miocene, even Pliocene sort of animals when looking at their back feet. But you could somewhat compare it to certain species of dinosaurs. I'd say in some instances, like prosauropods, if you're looking at the front feet on this individual, considering certain species of prosauropods are the ancestors to the long necks, such as Brachiosaurus and Barosaurus,
Look at its
had
tail.
very elongated thumbs. Oh, is that clawed?
That's what I was thinking.
Hmm. Well, I guess you have a sort of arthropod-like mutation. And speaking of what I mean by arthropods are animals such as scorpions. So arthropods consist of every single species of living insect and um, even different types of crustacean-like creatures such as scorpions. Yeah, very odd. I don't believe this is a dinosaur. It could be an early archosaur, but then again, maybe it's a distantly related group that this animal belongs to. So, Yale University researcher Dr. Adam Pritchard and co-authors analyzed a series of three-dimensionally preserved forelimbs and isolated forelimb bones of Drepanosaurus, full name Drepanosaurus unguicaudatus, that were discovered at the Hayden Quarry in the Chinle Formation, New Mexico. Okay, well, this is a bit more um, it sounds a bit more familiar when it comes to the formation, at least where it was found at, considering we've have discovered certain species of Triassic animals such as Coelophysis, Placerius, possibly Postosuchus from the Chinle Formation. Also, I even believe possibly even not Spinosaurus, Patinosaurus, a small species of Triassic pterosaur, one of the earliest species. So their findings were published online September 29th, 2016 in the journal Current Biology. That's not the end of the article, is it? Oh, well, first of all, how old is this again? 212. Okay. Yeah. It might have been you probably had Postosuchus in this instance. Oh. Um Well, so Japanosaurus is previously known only from Italy, where a badly crushed skeleton was collected at Edena Cave in the Zorzino Limestone Formation in 1980. Okay, so apparently we have known about this creature for decades. So this isn't necessarily too new. Wow, interesting. I haven't heard of this kind of an odd reptile. Still assuming it's non-archosauromorph, which is the family of reptiles in which dinosaurs belong to, though they evolved into essentially non-reptiles. It is a very complete core of the animal, but what on earth am I looking at? Is that supposed to be like the pelvis region? That's huge, however. Maybe it's like certain shoulder blades. Though that seems to be scapula. Okay, so if part of like an upper arm bone, this seems to be like the upper body of the animal. We're looking at a humerus, ulna. Yeah, this isn't the pelvis. Let's see, unguals, phalanges. Well, there are those distinct claws. They almost look like bear claws to an extent in how they're shaped. Very non-dinosaur like. even when you're looking at certain species of dinosaurs and their toes. Now, you could possibly say they might resemble certain shorter foreclaws of certain species of theropod dinosaurs, but probably not any herbivores. But even then, it's like they're too wide and a bit dull compared to most species of theropod dinosaurs. So, even also when it comes to different species of crocodilomorphs, it's very different, and other lizards in general. So the ancient creature is neither a dinosaur nor a lizard. I actually find that surprising. It is a member of Drepanousauromorpha, a group of Triassic reptiles with lizard-like body proportions and elongate, slender digits, likely adapted for specialized grasping. Trypanosaurus stretches the bounds of what we think can evolve or what we think can evolve in the limbs of four-footed animals. So it's like this creature has a bit of a crocodile monitor or a monitor lizard sort of an arboreal lifestyle. Well, you could say crocodile monitors can be somewhat arboreal, but they're usually found on the ground, just capable of climbing trees. But this animal seems to be very adapted for life in the upper canopy. Very
Is he
it's
just licking the
almost
bark?
it's almost like, uh, it's has an almost tree sloth sort of build to it, but very different.
It looks like he's licking the bark. Or is he
Um,
eating something?
yeah, that's what I was thinking too. He was licking something, and he might be eating, like, larvae, which what I would assume would be one of the main, like, not biological, but, dietary components for this animal, or it's simply a leaf eater. But we don't have it doesn't seem we have much emphasis, at least on the skull. We have found, much of the upper body. Okay, let's bring up another creature. Oh, no, we were right there. Okay, Ephigia. So, Ephigia. Yeah, so this is one of the earlier species of Archosaurs to evolve during the Triassic period. And this animal is probably not much more than 5 to 6 feet in length, or pushing maybe 1.8 meters. Probably also fed on a wide variety of different species of plants, but it is possible it might have been somewhat omnivorous. So maybe feeding on certain types of insects or going after different species of smaller amphibians or reptiles. This could be Ephigia, but the skull just seems a bit off for the animal. It's probably another earlier species of Archosauromorph. That looks a lot more like Ephigia. Very small arms for some reason compared to its body size. It is a shoe.
Marley asked. She wonders if it's venomous.
We don't have any evidence. In fact, this kind of correlates every single species of Archosauromorph. We don't necessarily have any evidence for different species of marine reptiles, crocodilomorphs, dinosaurs, their earlier predecessors, the pterosaurs, to have been venomous at this point. There are certain species, like when looking at certain types of smaller theropod carnivorous dinosaurs, such as the Microraptorids, or members of Paravis, specifically Sinornithosaurus from early Cretaceous China, with specific grooves in their jawline that could possibly indicate venom, but there are still I think you have a wide variety of different species of animals with that type of a distinct type of a groove, not the exact same shape of the skull, but just in what you see in the overall texture of their jaw that can be somewhat similar to a snake, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the animal is venomous. So this animal probably wasn't. Also, it
Is this
seems,
it?
yeah, this is a fig. Yeah, it's just a bit of an older representation. Now, it is a bit of a question as to why older species of Archosauromorphs, and specifically also these Shuvosaurs, which is a family of archosaurs that Ephegia belongs to. Shuvosaurs did quite well during the Triassic. Unfortunately, they would go extinct somewhere between 202 and 210 million years ago during the last 8 million years of the Triassic. Um, but this animal was existing on Pangea shortly before the first dinosaurs would have evolved. Possibly was a bit of a predecessor, but it also might have simply have just been a great uncle to the different species of Saurischian dinosaurs that are about to evolve. So this would include some of the first species of theropod and sauropod dinosaurs, or prosauropods. Sauropods won't evolve until somewhere around 180 million years ago, during the first or after the first 22 million years of the Jurassic. Also for this time, I mean, even the intelligence of these animals was probably quite high for terrestrial life at this point. They were quite highly evolved. There hadn't really been anything like these types of creatures back in the Permian period or even the earlier Triassic. So this is pushing somewhere between 240 to, or maybe 235 to 242 million years ago. And it's also between the 235 and 240 million year mark that we find some of the earliest species of dinosaurs, at least in more recent years. It was assumed not too long ago that dinosaurs first evolved maybe 228 to 230 million years ago. Now we have evidence that the groups actually very much were massively expanding in variety by 232 million years ago, with different species of earlier saurischians that would give rise to the theropods and prosauropods that were evolving at that point. Also, let me know what you find odd about this creature in the chat. So, Drepanosaurus, back to the article, stretches the bounds of what we think can evolve in the limbs of four-footed animals. Ecologically, Drepanosaurus seems to be a sort of chameleon anteater hybrid, which is really bizarre for the time. It possesses a totally unique forelimb. I mean, I wouldn't say it's just bizarre for the Triassic period, late Triassic, but any part of the Phanerozoic era or the past 530 million years itself. This is quite odd. Now, there were different species of arboreal creatures that had evolved during the Mesozoic era, especially when pointing to different species of smaller pterosaurs, different types of members of the Paravis lineage or the smaller Microraptorids. And you even had certain types of gliding mammals that were already evolving during the Jurassic and the Cretaceous periods. I don't know if we have any evidence for them already evolving during the Triassic, however. So, four-limbed animals with backbone are called tetrapods. In nearly all tetrapods, the forearm is made up of two elongate and parallel bones, the radius and the ulna. These bones connect to a series of much shorter wrist bones at the base of the hand. So here it seems to be combining them or comparing. Um, well, no, actually, that species is not showing up here with other species, of reptiles and archosaurs. Well, that's interesting. It's showing Archosauromorpha, but not a specific creature. Then Squamata. Oh, that's just odd. This is okay. These are more specific. Okay, so here we go with Drepanus Soromorpha. Yeah, they are very different. The claws are in a vastly different shape. Even the fingers, the way that they're curved,
What's wrong with this one?
as well as the forearms. Yeah, it's strange. That is Megaluncosaurus. I haven't focused too much on the Drepanosauromorphs. That is strange. Which is, I mean, it's odd. It's not him. Okay, here's Drepanosaurus. These are two, I think, possibly different species, but then it just says Hayden Quarry Drepanosaurus. Yeah, that's different. Wow. He decided to go a completely different route. So Drepanosaurus, however, has radius and ulna bones that are not parallel. Instead, the ulna is a flat crescent-shaped bone, Also, the two wrist bones that meet the end of the ulna are long rather than short. They are longer than the radius, in fact. The bone contact suggests that the enlarged claw of Drepanosaurus could have been hooked into insect nests. I mean, I guess they could have been raiding some sort of a hive, though at this point, there doesn't seem to be any evidence for different species of bees or wasps. What's the other kind? Well, as well as like different types of moths or butterflies evolving at this point. In fact, there doesn't seem to be evidence of those insects until the early Cretaceous, somewhere between 110 to 135 million years ago, which is also corresponding with the time of some of the earliest species of flowering plants. So it is a huge mystery as to what specifically this animal might be hunting, even insect wise. So it's likely it might be hunting different species of termites or ants. That's very common in different types of wooded ecosystems.
Are they covered in chocolate?
This animal would probably die if they were okay. Let's say you love chocolate. Yeah, sure. Though I would assume that the termites and the ants, except he's probably well, okay, he's not an herbivore. I was comparing it with certain species of animals that feed on termites and ants to help dilate certain toxins and different types of vegetation that they feed on. Um, so yeah, it's probably Dove chocolate. So the entire arm could then have been powerfully retracted to tear open the nest. This motion is very similar to the hook and pull digging of living anteaters, which also eat insects. Yeah, anteaters are pretty ant and termite focused, though I think it can be sometimes exaggerated into like how people view anteaters and what they or how many ants they specifically eat. There is a certain limit. I think it can be somewhere around maybe 30,000 ants or termites at once. Well, what I mean by that is throughout the day or night. Um, but they're not necessarily the best for controlling ant populations. So Drepanosaurus also had grasping feet and a claw-like structure at the tip of its tail. Yeah, that is okay. So it wasn't just us that noticed that. Um, that's interesting. It just didn't really go into depth with that type of a morphological characteristic or mutation. So the findings suggest that tetrapods developed specialized modern ecological roles more than 200 million years ago. Uh, yeah, I mean, I was ever since Tiktaalik. No, you could say Tiktaalik was still very aquatic, but could still somewhat come onto land. But that was over 365 million years ago. Ever since like throughout the Carboniferous period, and you had different species of amphibians, especially temnospondyls occurring, then different species of reptiles, and eventually the different types of proto-mammals, the therapsids, the synapsids evolving, different types of earlier relatives of anapsids, or what would give rise to different species of tortoises and turtles, as well as like the giant marine species of the Mesozoic. And then this 200 million years ago, that's the first 2 million years of the Jurassic. You already have it where different species of dinosaurs, so theropods, prosauropods, different species of proto-mammals like the Dicynodonts are having a huge impact on the landscape. Earlier archosaurs and the pterosaurs, let's see, tetrapods, trying to think of who else. They're earlier mammals. So that's a really kind of a goofy statement. Oh, wait. Nobody said that. It was just added. Let's bring up Eodromus. Eodromeus. Yeah, interesting. So this might be a slightly older depiction, but it's not bad for Eodromeus. It is a species of smaller. Oh, come on! They had to give him saber teeth, small saber teeth.
I just thought it was funny.
Actually, I'm not even sure if I would call them saber teeth. They almost look like viper fangs. No, actually, viper fangs are very, narrow. So that's more actually, you could say they're almost like modern cat canines. Never mind. Did we find, like, certain types of teeth, like maybe what we see over in the later Ceratosaurus of the Jurassic of Eodromius that give this sort of a, representation? I don't think so, like, with any species of even earlier theropod in general. This is one of the first species of theropods to evolve over in South American Pangea. This animal was maybe pushing somewhere around 3 to 4 feet in length. It was one of the earliest species of theropods to have evolved. Whoa, okay, well, here they're giving him lips, and he looks, um, very curious. Like, he is very much coming up with a plan on how to take down, like, maybe younger juvenile prosauropods in the area that he inhabits, likely of different parts of Argentina. Yeah, that's just probably it's probably a bit of an older reconstruction, but it's not bad. As we're looking at the upper jaw, however, with those distinct teeth, that could make sense as to why those other representations were giving it a bit of a um saber tooth sort of a look. So that makes sense. It's very odd how certain species, and this isn't too common within the theropod lineage, but it pops up now and then throughout the Triassic and Jurassic periods, especially. Cretaceous, maybe the first 45 million years, but even then it's not too common. But it's definitely present within the first two periods of the Mesozoic. Well, yeah, also adding these distinct types of bird-like textures along the bottom of the mandible and even just down the cervical vertebrae or the bottom part of the neck. And it is very likely that some of the earliest species of small theropod dinosaurs were feathered. Yeah, I think that's a good reconstruction. This looks a bit, in some cases, too Dromaeosaur-like. Um, I mean, it is possible that Eodromius might have had a similar sort of a just skull build and even the feather plumage, but he definitely looks he. It's like a mixture of confused and somewhat confident in what he's doing. Yeah, this one it almost looks like an
He
Eoraptor to
looks
an
like he's
extent,
thinking
and
about something.
well, yeah, that too. Yeah, he seems to be. You know what it is? You can almost confuse the saber tooth for one of those like early 1900s or late 1800s smoking pipes. So, he's like representing Carl Jung. But anyway, he's a philosopher. Is what I'm trying to say. Let's see. Oh yeah, so I mean, this really isn't a bad reconstruction of the animal. It does look a bit similar to theropod dinosaurs that have evolved, such as Herrerasaurus and Eoraptor. No, Herrerasaurus was much larger. Eoraptor was around the same size and possibly coexisting with Eodromius at certain points. Maybe it might have been slightly smaller, however, like pushing 3 to 3.5 feet or a little over a meter. This guy is very far off.
He
His
looks
legs are,
insane. He
yep.
looks insane.
Yeah, he does. His legs are far too not just long, but even robust compared to like any species of smaller theropod dinosaur, at least smaller than the large Herrerasaur for the Triassic. The toes too were just far too robust. But yeah, that's not a bad reconstruction of Vigia. Usually, with most Shuvasaurids, they're represented with beaks. Okay. Oh, this was interesting with this odd species of mammal. I mean, reptile. So let's head to another part of the Mesozoic.
Oh, Maria said that last one was making the peace gesture, and she doesn't like chocolate ants.
Yeah. I'm guessing with the claw.
Yeah, the one with the claw that was doing this.
Mm. Oh. Well, that definitely wasn't how I was seeing it, especially since he wanted to eat our ancestors. I very much doubt that. Um, though I guess, hmm. Yeah, I guess if you don't see the extra finger, but yeah, he's definitely not rooting for peace. He's very pro war and Well, no, he's just pro mammalian consumption, which is fine, but at the same time, it's like you hurt my ancestors. So anyway, it's a joke. I have much respect for both the dinosaurs and the little mammals at the time. If it wasn't for the dinosaurs, especially every single species of mammal today would not have like the intelligence, the robustness as like especially when it comes to their overall mentality and adaptability. Like really if it wasn't for them, but also like the different types of climatic changes that have occurred, ecological changes. So um yeah, I mean, it's entertaining when you watch dinosaurs or when they're represented as even taking down smaller mammals. Really, when it comes to the smaller theropods. So it's like you look back and you're grateful, and then other times it's like, okay, I need some entertainment. It sounds deranged, but I think maybe it's just a paleo thing. So from Sci News, Limosaurus beaked bird-like dinosaur species had teeth as juveniles, lost them as they grew. So, an international team of paleontologists has discovered that Limosaurus inextricabalis is a species of Jurassic dinosaur, lost its teeth in adolescence, and did not grow another set as adults. So, I have heard of Limosaurus, but this is definitely quite new, even though it took place a few years back. Well, he looks very pleased with his lizard. Hmm.
I didn't even realize that. The other one looks like "Give me a bite."
Yeah, it does. Probably that is what it's saying. Wouldn't doubt there must have been massive competition at times for whatever protein sources um, the adults brought to the nest, unless that's not, though it looks like a reptile. I was thinking, well, she's munching on some ferns.
There's some feet hanging out.
Yeah, it maybe what it was is that with certain species of animals, you have it where the young are feeding on animal protein rich diets, and then as they grow older, they become much more vegetarian. So, Limosaurus inextricabalis, mire lizard who could not escape, is a ceratosaurian theropod dinosaur. Oh, okay. It was confusing it with a smaller sauropod that lived during the Upper Jurassic Oxfordian in what is now northwestern China. It was found in 159 million year old deposits located in the Hungar Basin of Xinjiang and earned its name from the way its skeletons were preserved, stacked on top of each other in fossilized mire pits. The research team, led by Dr. Xing Shu from the Institute of Vertebrate Paleontology and Paleoanthropology in Beijing, and Dr. Shuao Wang of Capital Normal University in Beijing. Normal. Um, okay. Study 19 skeletons of Limosaurus inextricabalis.
I wonder if that's kind of like Smith or Brown or something here.
What?
Wang.
I doubt it. Unless you're talking
There's
about
a
like
lot
how
of Wangs.
yeah, I mean, I think you're wondering if for how common it is
Yes.
in over there. Um, yeah, no idea. I mean, it's like too common. But anyway, the individuals ranged in age from baby to adult, showing the pattern of tooth loss over time. The baby skeleton had small, sharp teeth, and the adult skeletons were consistently toothless. It's still quite a dramatic change in development. I mean, that's like a whole there are several evolutionary steps that are occurring just in growth stages. I mean, it is odd how you have it in certain lineages of animals. It's taking several million years for them to make these types of in their case, small changes to the body, but then in some other animals, it's immediate within their lifetime. So that's where evolution becomes a bit confusing. Like it decides, okay, we're going to make these or take these rapid steps. It's not even going to take some major change in nutrition, though it might have when they first evolved or as they were evolving.
Is that like those goats or sheep on that island?
Um, Somewhat you could say. I'm guessing they possibly evolved very powerful or strong kidneys to withstand the salt water, which I'm guessing that they were drinking because there didn't seem to be any fresh water on the island in Brazil that these abandoned goats were living on. Just like what you see with certain wild Bactrian camel populations over in northern China and Mongolia. They can drink seawater or any of the salt water in certain areas within those two countries due to having very robust kidneys. There are certain other species of mammals that have a very similar mutation. The domestic Bactrian camel, however, cannot digest salt water or it can't handle it. So that's quite surprising. But it also is a completely different species. It's not just domestic. Let's see. So we analyzed 19 species of Lamosaurus inextricabalis, representing six ontogenetic stages based on body size and histological data. Hmm. Okay. Let's bring up Draco Rex. So Dracorex.
I'll put a skeleton up first.
Okay, so this is or it was originally assumed to be its own species of Pachycephalosaur, but further analyses, and this dates back a few years now, has placed it as part of the growing stage of a Pachycephalosaurus. Um,
Wait, so it's a packy.
it is basically a young Pachycephalosaurus. But reason why, or one of the reasons why I was bringing this up, is because of the insane um, physical differences, really along the skull of this animal that were taking place throughout its lifetime. Let's also bring up Stygy Moloch. Let's see, Stymoloch. So, Pachycephalosaurus, which is also the adult state, well, the adult stage. So it is the animal that Stygimoloch is too. Stygimoloch is the older growing stage for, or the next growing stage from this Dracorex for Pachycephalosaurus. So yeah, this is essentially Stygimoloch. It still has very long horns compared to the adult version of Pachycephalosaurus. Though the dome is finally showing quite a presence on the animal. Oh yeah, you could even say the horn-like structures might um, shorten a bit. Okay, yeah, this guy looks like a Tibetan yak or a Highland cattle. Um, or what else? I wouldn't say something like any Ice Age animals, maybe a woolly rhino to an extent.
Uh,
Actually, you could even say it might have like a bear sort of a complexion, like one of those sort of beige or blondish sort of brown bears.
Sogo Hotel said camels aren't a dinosaur though. Then said if I'm mistaken, oh, did that evolve into a camel? I think
I
I think the
think.
reference was the salt water where we were talking about the evolution
Oh, well, I was wondering why did I bring up
because I brought up the when you said the evolution, I brought up the goats or sheep or whatever on the island,
oh,
and then you referenced the camels.
well, that is true. Camels are mammals. Um But you might have had it with certain types of dinosaurs depending on the ecosystem, especially dry ecosystems that they inhabited, which we do have evidence for different species over in different parts of the Cretaceous period, even the late Jurassic as well as the Triassic, inhabiting more arid regions, but still being adjacent to areas that could support other dinosaurs of larger sizes. Now, why I'm saying that is because in many of these ecosystems, you had certain smaller species of theropod dinosaurs, or later into the Mesozoic, like different species of ornithischians or medium-sized dinosaurs. But like the camels and the goats, you probably had it where certain species in certain types of deserts um, might have evolved practically the same mutation as the camels or the goats, or certain other species of animals that have that same kidney trait. But yeah, and I'll also put into there that like saber-toothed cats and even woolly mammoths are also mammals and not dinosaurs because some people assume that they are, usually because they're often mixed in with the different
I think he was
species of
asking
dinosaurs.
if they evolved from dinosaurs.
No. Mammals took a completely different path, or at least they evolved from a different branch of tetrapods. So, being like very closely related to the previous synapsid lineage of proto-mammals.
Murray said, I don't get why the small arms. Any function or reason for that?
It's a huge mystery when it comes to different species of pachycephalosaurs, certain types of theropod dinosaurs, the earlier archosaurs like Ephegia. Why the oh, well, also the different species of allosaurs like the mononychids, though they actually, when referring to mononychids, might have had a more distinct sort of a use. Like usually, the theory is that they use their claws to dig through ant or termite mounds. But for other species that had um, very dull claws compared to their body size, and also when looking at um, their jaw structure, their overall rib cage sides, or specifically where the digestive system would be. Um, it's just taking everything to account and the theory as to what these animals would have fed on. It's a huge mystery as to how, when at least seeking different prey items, like whether it's plants or animals, fungi, like what the arms were used for. Pachycephalosaurus was a carnivore. It used to be assumed that this dome-headed dinosaur was a species of herbivore. Also, because it was not just having very almost leaf-shaped like teeth, but then after further analyses was done on the dental structure of Pachycephalosaurus, it seems to be much more carnivorous and not really having the ability to slice through plant material. Maybe now and then it could feed on fruit, but at least when it comes to different types of leaves like ferns and flowers in the area, that seems to be impossible. So, possibly feeding on different species of smaller to maybe even medium sized dinosaurs in the area. This was in the late Cretaceous of Montana about 68 million years ago. So baby tyrannosaurs probably fell, and specifically T Rex, prey to Pachycephalosaurus now and then, if the parents were not present.
I
Um,
still have trouble getting past the fact that these things used to be called herbivores and then switched to carnivores.
Yeah, it was quite a dramatic sort of a switch. What was the other thing? I think also like having that specific beak, it had very, or it has in many cases very herbivore like traits or herbivorous. And that change in the dietary theory was just very shocking. What else was, I think I went off somewhere. Basically, it is very possible in different dry environments that you would have had certain species of dinosaurs evolve kidneys that could withstand water sources with very high levels of salt. Pachycephalosaurus, it seems, at least in the region that inhabited in the late Cretaceous, was just didn't need that type of an evolutionary adaptation. There were several rivers, different types of swamps and marshes in the area. So um, virtually just had constant access to salt water. I mean, fresh water. Maybe during the dry season, it might be a bit challenging at certain points, but even then, it probably wasn't too hard to find a water source. I'm trying. You might have had certain species like over in late Cretaceous Mongolia or China, such as maybe even Velociraptor. You might have had certain populations that evolved very tough kidneys because Velociraptor did live adjacent to desert ecosystems, or even the Therizinosaurs. So yeah, these are the growth stages of the Pachycephalosaurus. Oh, so yeah, when looking at per se the Ceratosaurian and the different growth stages and how they originally had teeth and later on they lost those teeth just reminds me of what occurred with Pachycephalosaurus, not really having a dome when it was young, and also not necessarily having very long horns compared to its skull size. And then later on into like the what's maybe somewhat teenage stage, um, or I guess the midway process to adulthood, very elongated horns and a very present dome. And then they would shorten at least towards the back of the skull, and the dome would fully take over like the core of the skull. So I think something else that trying to think of the other animal this was reminding me of. It's not hitting me at the moment. But it's just a very why is it that certain species takes millions of years to evolve these traits, and others it's just immediate? So, among 78 ontogenetic changes we identified in these specimens, the most unexpected one is the change from fully toothed jaws in the hatchling and juvenile individuals to a completely toothless beak jaw in the more mature individuals, representing the first fossil record of ontogenetic endotulism among the jawed vertebrates. This discovery is important for two reasons, said co author Professor James Clark from the George Washington University's Columbian College of Arts and Sciences. First, it's very rare to find a growth series from baby to adult dinosaurs. Second, this unusually dramatic change in anatomy suggests there was a big shift in Limosaurus diet from adolescence to adulthood. I think something else that we see in different species of dinosaurs, especially when they're young, the different species of hadrosaurs like Parasaurolophus, and then different species of ceratopsids like Triceratops itself. If you look at Triceratops, the young have very, like, almost a bit of a nub or just a slight protrusion of the horn on their skulls when they're first born. And when you look at younger animals like Parasaurolophus, it's very likely that they barely had a crest when first born. So, first, it's very rare to find a growth series from baby to adult dinosaurs. Second, this unusually dramatic change in anatomy suggests there was a big shift in Limosaurus's diet from adolescence to adulthood. For most dinosaur species, we have few specimens and a very incomplete understanding of their developmental biology, said co author Joseph Steigler, a graduate student at George Washington University. Well, that's actually not a terrible reconstruction of a young Triceratops. Okay,
That's
actually,
not a triceratops, is it?
he has a lot of problems. Now, the eye sockets were likely very large compared to their body size when first born, but it has an enormous horn, or actually a couple of horns, maybe three, towards the side of its skull. They would have been present, but not to that specific size. Even the horns along the top of the frill seem a bit large. And then that small um, horn or nasal horn towards the front of its skull is far too tall, but also too thin as well. There would barely have been a protrusion. The eye socket horns seem to be the most realistic. Rest of the animal, I think, seems fine. They were quite um, stocky, but so is Triceratops in general. So, the large sample size of Limosaurus inextricabalis allowed us to use several lines of evidence, including the morphology, microstructure, and stable isotopic composition of the fossil bones to understand developmental and dietary changes in this animal.
Or I said, "Poor thing."
Oh, the
Triceratops.
yeah. I forgot about the meteors in the background. Well, I wasn't Triceratops. I'm not sure what that was. First, I was thinking maybe it was some type of a centrosaur because of how the nasal horn looked along with the frill. Centrosaurs, in some cases, have shorter frills, so the back part of the skull that protects the neck compared to their body size and different members of the Chasmosaur lineage of ceratopsians.
Okay, I know I always ask this. How many different types of, um,
We have found around 40 different species of ceratopsian.
which means they all look different?
Every single species of ceratopsian has its own distinct type of horn structure, and as well, overall, like the head structure is just quite different when you're looking at the overall interior of the skull and the frill.
Who
So,
have we found the most of?
Triceratops over in Triceratops horridus over in Montana. We have, well, I don't know. Maybe I have to be careful with that because Pachyrhinosaurus, certain species of Pachyrhinosaurus can enter that specific realm because we have found in some cases over 1,000 individuals due to a flash flood event that occurred in Lake Cretaceous, Alberta, Canada, around 75 million years ago. Not necessarily having it where full intact individuals of like every one of the more than 1,000, but definitely enough of their skeletons conjoined together to show that there were that many in the area. As well as I think in some cases overlapping with certain species of hadrosaurs because they were coexisting with like different species of the Lambeosaur family of duckbill dinosaurs back in Lake Cretaceous, Alberta. So, Limosaurus inextricabilis is part of the theropod group of dinosaurs, the evolutionary ancestors of birds. Um, Okay, the birds evolved from a distinct lineage of Paraves. So Paraves, which came from another lineage of smaller theropod dinosaurs, would have evolved into animals like Archaeopteryx and later different species of terror birds, eagles, vultures, but not the Ceratosaurians. They would go extinct towards the end of the Cretaceous period. So they had a good run, but they wouldn't evolve into birds. So the team's earlier research of Limosaurus inextricabalis described the species' hand development and notes that the dinosaur's reduced first finger may have been transitional and that later theropods lost the first and fifth fingers. That is interesting. It's not just the dinosaurs that we see losing fingers. In fact, we see this with different species of mammals, like a very renowned group are the horses that lose the fingers from the well, first they have like specifically four fingers during the Paleocene epoch, and then they narrow it down to about one during the Pleistocene epoch.
Was that when they were in the United States?
Um, yes, that was back when they were North America, but when you also already had different species inhabiting different parts of Europe and Asia, but they still retain those um four toes. So
Wait, didn't camels have them too?
camels, I think, only um possibly had three. They didn't have four. But that was also only around 30 million years ago in the Oligocene of different parts of the Midwest. So Nebraska, Kansas, different parts of Wyoming. Well, I know it's a bit further west. So the fossils. Oh, so similarly, bird hands consist of the equivalent of a human's second, third, and fourth fingers. I think what's interesting is when you look at different species of modern day animals, especially whales, because they're members of the Artiodactyl family, so they contain five fingers just like us. It is quite interesting. And they didn't lose any fingers, they just can't really grab anything. The fossils indicate that baby Limosaurus inextricabalis could have been carnivores or omnivores, while the adults were herbivores, as they would have needed teeth to chew meat but not plants. The fossils also could help to show how theropods such as birds lost their teeth, initially through changes during their development from babies to adults. It is also odd how you have it where different species of dinosaurs had like specifically beaks. Well, even different species of proto mammals. Let's see. I guess we could bring up maybe like Protoceratops. Take them up here. Protocerops. Um, I don't remember if there was some sort of a joke between like the griffin and Protoceratops when it was first discovered, or this was just a depiction that popped up recently. Um, okay, so this is probably supposed to be a Protoceratops coming upon a Velociraptor. Velociraptor would probably be in some cases around the same height or maybe slightly shorter than a Protoceratops, but only weighing in at maybe 30 pounds or pushing 12 kilograms. Also having a much longer and thinner jaw compared to what we're seeing on this model.
Where are they from?
They're over in Mongolia about 71 million years ago. In fact, we have a specimen of a Protoceratops and a Velociraptor locked in battle. This Protoceratops is far too thin, at least when it comes to the legs, or they're just too long, maybe compared to its body size. Oh, yeah, there's something off about the forelimbs. The skull looked fine. Oh yeah, are these the growth stages that we've discovered Protoceratops? Yeah, they're very much intact. But I think what's odd is that you have a skull that's very similar. It's almost just like a small version of the full-grown adult, but the one in the middle seems quite, um, like, too differed. So I wonder why it would have become narrow unless maybe, it was showing dimorphism? Though, obviously, the baby's, actually, it has quite a protruding frill. We have it in different, species of larger ceratopsians where the frill was present, but in some cases was even smaller compared to their body size than what's being shown on this newborn hatchling. And, yeah, the mature individual seems pretty intact, just chipped away at the snout a little bit.
What is this guy supposed to be eating?
Yeah, this would be depicted with a lot of different, Velociraptor and Protoceratops depictions that they're just out in the desert somehow eking a living. Um, I think there are also, in some cases, instances where there's like little bits of bushes here and there that are put out for them. But in reality, you would have had certain lush ecosystems, like different types of floodplains that both of the animals would congregate at. Probably not depositing eggs in an area where there isn't any access to vegetation. That's just very unintelligent of an herbivore to do so.
Its children are going to starve.
Yeah, there's nothing here. It's kind of like what was going on with a like prehistoric planet and the sauropods laying their eggs in the midst of a volcanic region, and then assuming that if they left their own dung behind, that it would stay well, and specifically horse dung, well preserved and contain enough like nutrients and minerals for the young to survive on for a certain amount of time, and expect the young to travel a certain distance to get food. Um, and apparently they time traveled too. Question is, how did they lift the horse manure? Okay, well, see, so tooth loss isn't so unusual in animals alive today. There are fish and an amphibian that lose teeth as they grow. Platypuses lose their teeth too. Well, technically, yeah, there's a number of animals that lose their teeth, but it tends to be quite um restricted. Like you have it where elephants go through six sets of teeth, and once they've filed down that sixth set, that's pretty much it. It starves. So, but the discovery is still a first for the fossil record and for reptiles. Oh, wait a second. I think what it means is that it's referring to animals that lose their teeth permanently and still efficiently feed. I was taking it as in several replacements, kind of like with crocodiles, alligators, sharks. They continuously um, restock their teeth throughout their lifetime. Okay, so the team's findings published in the journal Current Biology suggests that the dietary habits and needs of some dinosaurs changed over the course of their development, most likely along with shifts in their digestive systems. Okay. Well, this was quite odd with this animal, but I guess not too surprising. I think one of the question is that why do you have it where certain types of proto mammals, even dinosaurs, evolved beaks, or they evolved beaks with a little bit of like a tooth area towards like the upper part of their jaw. Really speaking of oviraptorids, a certain species had that type of an odd dental structure, and just certain others completely toothless. And then you have these specific species that, when they're first growing up, they had teeth throughout um, basically their whole mouth, and then eventually, as they reached adulthood, they became herbivorous. So that is quite strange. Okay, well, let's head over to the Cenozoic era. Okay, so from the Guardian.com, baby numbat spotted at two wildlife sanctuaries
You're
in
skipping the other one?
yeah, I thought we were just, or wait, we were um
That was the thumbnail.
oh, right, okay. Never mind. We're gonna stay in the Mesozoic. So, Teleocrator radinis, early dinosaur relative, had surprising crocodile-like look. Paleontologists have long wondered what the earliest dinosaur relatives looked like. Most assumed that they would look like dwarf dinosaurs and walk on two legs. The discovery of Teleocrator radinis, however, has overturned popular predictions. Okay, let's see what's going on here. That is a definitely confusing, gruesome sort of a look. Kind of looks like a volcanic eruption in the background, or almost representing like the Triassic or even Permian extinction. But many of actually practically all these animals you wouldn't have seen towards the end of the Permian around 252 million years ago. I have no idea what this creature is feeding on here. It almost looks like a Gorgonopsian that time traveled. So, Teleocrator radinis lived during the Middle Triassic epoch more than 245 million years ago, predating the first true dinosaurs by 10 million years. A little less these days. So, this ancient creature appears in the fossil record just after a large group of reptiles known as archosaurs split into a bird branch, leading to dinosaurs and eventually birds, and a crocodile branch leading to alligators and crocodiles. Well, what it refers to, what it means by the crocodile branch, is the Pseudosuchian branch, which is um, better known as the crocodilomorph branch. Because not all crocodilomorphs, only a small amount are crocodiles or even crocodilians, but all crocodiles and crocodilians are crocodilomorphs. So Teleocrator radinis had a long neck and tail and was 7 to 10 feet or 2.1 to 3 meters in length. Rather than walking on two legs, it walked on four crocodilian like legs. Yeah, that is what was interesting about that creature in the picture. It has equal, almost equal. Forelimbs seem to be slightly shorter than the hind limbs, which is not surprising for many vertebrates. Um, but at least
Well,
with
he
this,
also has them bent.
with this type of a um earlier Archosauromorph, I mean, even for Archosaurs in general, it is quite odd, especially meat-eating species. But then again, you have it where there are different species of crocodilomorphs, which are essentially Archosaurs, that have relatively similar lengthed forelimbs compared to their hind limbs. This guy is very strange, though. The discovery of such an important new species is a once in a lifetime experience, said Dr. Sterling Nesbitt, a researcher at Virginia Tech and the lead author of a report published this week on Teleocrator Radinis in the journal Nature. The discovery overturns widely held preconceptions about the morphology of early dinosaur relatives, with many paleontologists anticipating that such creatures were or would be smaller, bipedal, more dinosaur-like. Well, I think it's also in looking at animals like Ephegia, the representation, or at least the depiction of these animals, tends to be bipedal at this point in the Triassic, or at least the earlier Archosauromorph lineage, especially also when you have animals like Euparkeria, which could possibly be or probably be quadrupedal at certain points, but then again bipedal. Um, in fact, let's see. So we're in the Triassic. Um, hmm, let's bring up Eoraptor. Eoraptor.
Okay, this just looks like a lizard.
Yeah, I would say in some cases he's slightly more primitive in theropod evolution, compared to animals like Eodromius and even the Herrerasaurids and the later Coelophysids that would evolve. You also have it where this animal was coexisting with different species of crocodilomorphs. Yeah, that is it's actually been a somewhat more common depiction in recent years of like different species of even Triassic theropods being represented as having like monogamous relationships. So it's very possible, kind of like similar to certain species of birds today. You might have even had certain types of theropod dinosaurs, probably more common with herbivores, where it was one male and several females, or you could have had it where a female would have probably have had access to different males. But it seems to be with theropods in many cases that they might have been monogamous.
This one looks crazy.
Yeah, he does. There are certain facts. I wonder if that's like a literal statue, but maybe it's a bottle. Um, Also, this guy is from Argentina as well. And you also had different species of earlier theropod dinosaurs inhabiting Africa too, especially around like Tanzania, Ethiopia, and South Africa. And we also have different species of like the tusked dicynodonts existing at this point too. Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah, this is a really good, well preserved um specimen of Eoraptor. Very thin and narrow jaw, which is very typical for different species of earlier theropods. Really, the broader skull structure, except some might argue Herrerasaurus has a bit of a wider sort of a jaw compared to many other earlier theropods.
That's
Because,
enough. Well, it's same thing.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's very much intact. The wider sort of skull build doesn't really appear until the Jurassic, not including other archosaurs like different types of crocodilomorphs who already had wider skull structures earlier on. You could even say that for the temnospondyls, but really just focusing on the carnivorous dinosaurs. Prosauropods also took a weird turn in evolution when they had longer skulls compared to their body size. They weren't huge, but they were definitely more a bit more noticeable compared to the rather short skulls or even some cases vertical skulls of their later sauropod descendants. So it's just showing that the dinosaurs were taking many different routes in um just overall different skeletal builds compared to, especially the mammals and even the crocodilomorphs. I would say, I mean, the crocodilomorphs do show a wide range of different types of characteristics, but they're not, I wouldn't necessarily say that they're very different from each other. If you're looking at just the overall variety of physical characteristics, they're quite similar. Okay, where are you? So, Teleocrator rhodinus fundamentally challenges our models of what the close relatives of dinosaurs would have looked like, said Richard Butler, a professor of paleobiology at the University of Birmingham, UK, and co author on the paper. I mean, this Teleocrator individual, I don't believe he's the only species of earlier Archosaur to have occurred during the early Triassic and also be essentially a hypercarnivore to um, have this type of build. I think there's certain other species. So the late paleontologist F. Rex Parrington first discovered Teleocrator fossils in the Ruhuhu Basin of southern Tanzania in 1933. Okay, so it is specifically one of the African species. So the late Alan J. Harig, then curator of fossil reptiles, amphibians, and birds at the Natural History Museum of London, UK, was the first to study those original specimens in the 1950s. Wow, so you've got a lot going on here. I guess there was a bit of a I'm not sure if I would say heyday, but I guess a lot of the original discoveries of different species of earlier archosaurs coming in from East Africa at this point in the mid 1900s, and different species of earlier dinosaurs and earlier species of mammals too. Who's the other one? Did I say proto mammal?
Wait, mammals were already existing here?
Um, no. Mammals probably won't evolve for somewhere between another 8 to 15 million years. But I was just mentioning that during the mid 1900s, we're finding several different species over in different parts of Africa
Oh,
from the
okay,
Triassic.
that threw me.
However, due to a lack of crucial bones, such as the ankle bones, Cherrig could not determine whether Teleocrator was more closely related to crocodilians or to dinosaurs. The new specimens found in 2015 clear up those questions. The intact ankle bones and other parts of the skeleton helped Dr. Nesbitt, Professor Butler, and co authors determine that Teleocrator is one of the oldest members of the Archosaur tree and had a crocodilian look. So he seems to be an almost pseudo-Suchian predecessor, which would give rise to the crocodilomorphs. That is quite a difference. Um, hmm. I guess let's bring up like one of the larger species, such as the Saurosuchus. So Saurosuch.
I just thought he was funny.
Yeah, so this is one of the largest species of crocodilomorphs to evolve during the Triassic period. It was not essentially the largest of the Mesozoic. It was one of the largest terrestrial species. And it seems to be that it could have been mostly not bipedal, quadrupedal. So walking on all fours. So, yeah, I mean, this is a very well put together skeleton of the animal, and almost you could say tyrannosaur type of a skull build, but it's still quite different. But it has very wide teeth compared to many other species of Rausuchian species of crocodilomorphs during this time, or the pseudosuchians. Its lineage, however, would unfortunately die out during the end of the Triassic around 201 million years ago. But it was roaming in different parts of Pangea around 210 to 220 million years ago, and was likely reaching somewhere around 20 to 25 feet in length, or pushing 6 to 8 meters, and probably weighed in at somewhere between 1 to 2 tons. So it was a massive species, Rausuchian.
How did that get in there?
Yeah, this is an older representation of Postosuchus. Still very iconic in the overall look. Probably the most iconic Postosuchus look, as well as when it comes to the Coelophysis. And it is possible that these animals both coexisted with each other, and probably just towards the later reign of Postosuchus. Okay, so we have another one, or this is supposed to be Saurosuchus fending off another species of theropod. Because Postosuchus, now we have known for many years now that the animal was bipedal, very small forearms compared to its body size. The overall build, I wouldn't necessarily say has changed too much. This guy, however, it's a big mystery. We don't really have a species of at least crocodilomorph from the Triassic with this type of at least this large of a crocodilomorph with this type of a skull structure. Um, it's almost proto mammal like. Definitely when you get like a good side look of the animal, and especially in this depiction, it's very different from different species of dinosaurs. But you could see where maybe certain people or certain other scientists earlier on in the species discovery might have assumed it was some quadrupedal um, carnivorous dinosaur. But I might have to see if there
This looks
any
to me
other
like
scientists
they were
would.
wrestling and he cheated by biting him.
Yeah, it does seem that way. Yeah, that was confusing. Was that it?
Nope.
So it's astonishing to think that it's taken more than 80 years to, or for the true scientific importance of these fossils to be understood and published. My colleague Alan Charig would have been thrilled to see one of his animals finally being named and occupying such an interesting position in the tree of life, said co author Professor Paul Barrett from the Natural History Museum of London. Our discovery shows the value of maintaining and reassessing historical collections. Many new discoveries like this one can be made by looking through museum collections with fresh eyes. The team's next steps are to return to Tanzania to find missing parts of Teleocrator Rhodinus skeleton. It's so exciting to solve puzzles like Teleocrator Rhodinus, where we can finally tease apart tricky mixed assemblages of fossils and shed light on broader anatomical and biogeographic trends in an iconic group of animals, said co-author Dr. Michelle Stalker, a paleobiologist at Virginia Tech. Well, this is definitely a very odd, but I think it's a very neat looking species of carnivorous reptile from the early Triassic. So let's head over to the later Cenozoic. So from the Guardian.com, baby numbat spotted at two wildlife sanctuaries and hopeful sign for one of Australia's rarest marsupials. Also, considering that numbats are quite rare, there are only like 3 or 4 different regions, tiny areas too, within southern Australia. I believe over in like the west, near the west coast of West Australia and southern New South Wales, or wait, New South Wales, or maybe the Northern Territory. That we have like 3 populations in tiny areas in that specific region. So, video shows some of the juveniles exploring outside their den at Mallee Cliffs National Park in southwestern New South Wales. Okay, so it was over in New South Wales, but maybe Northern Territory too. Baby numbats have been spotted at 2 wildlife sanctuaries in southwestern New South Wales, sparking hope for one of Australia's rarest marsupials. Video captured by the Australian Wildlife Conservancy shows. Yeah, I was wondering if this was going to pop up. We don't know how long it'll occur for. So, shows some of the juveniles exploring outside their den at Mallee Cliffs National Park. 5 numbat joeys, including quadruplet siblings, were seen at Mallee Cliffs and 2 more at Scotia Wildlife Sanctuary. The Wildlife Conservancy works with state national park staff at both sites on projects that have been reintroducing the species in predator free areas. Brad Liu, the videographer and photographer who captured the footage at Mallee Cliffs, said he watched the animals exploring outside the family den, which has an opening about the size of a coffee cup. That's not surprising considering these animals barely weigh maybe 24 ounces or pushing about 700 grams. What is also interesting about the numbat is that it has one of the longest tongues compared to its body size of any mammal, about 6.7 inches, or maybe, gosh, what is that? Like pushing around 15 to 17 centimeters. So I was lucky enough to observe them for a couple of days and get an idea of their routine, which involved sharing a den with mum overnight, venturing out around 8 a.m. and playing within 50 meters or what is this, like 150 feet or so of their home while mom hunts for termites. Rachel Ladd, a
Oh,
wildlife
we're back to eating termites.
yeah, a lot of ant and termite eating. This is kind of concerning, but I mean, it's good for the numbats. Rachel Ladd, a wildlife ecologist with AWC, said babies were always a special find, particularly for a species as difficult to spot in the wild as the numbat. Seeing 7 young numbats lets us know that the population is breeding in favorable environmental conditions and becoming more established. Numbats are one of Australia's rarest marsupials and are listed as endangered under national laws. Um, yeah, I don't remember the approximate estimate of numbats. It's definitely not high. Like maybe a couple of thousand or slightly more. Okay, so they're all just hanging out.
They kind of look like armadillos from the back.
Yeah, they do, but they're very distantly related. Armadillos are still placentals. So, unlike other Australian marsupials, they are active during the day and feed exclusively on termites. Numbers were once found across much of arid and semi-arid Australia, but by the 1970s they had disappeared from most places except for isolated parts of southwest western Australia due to predation by feral animals such as foxes and cats and habitat destruction. They are listed as extinct in New South Wales, but projects such as those at Mallee Cliffs and Scotia Sanctuary are reintroducing the animals to reestablish populations in parts of their former range. The AWC said the 5 juveniles at Mallee Cliffs were believed to be the great great grandchildren of a cohort of numbats reintroduced to the national park in 2020. Um, yeah, it's a quick reproduction process, but that's not too surprising. It felt surreal seeing 4 siblings in the one location. The AWC land management officer, Michael Dadao, said they were just cruising around, falling asleep, and playing with each other. The bravest of the lot even ran up to me to check me out before scurrying back. It wasn't scared at all. The other 2 babies were observed running around logs at Scotia Wildlife Sanctuary on a Barkindi country, where the species was reintroduced in the late 1990s. The AWC said this observation, along with other recent numbat sightings at that sanctuary, gave conservation workers optimism. The population was recovering after a decline triggered by the 2018 to 2019 drought in the lower Murray Darling region. Oh, right, that area. Okay, so oh. Yeah, just yawning.
That is a long tongue.
Yeah. Very useful, however.
Oh, can't see his face.
Yeah, it looks pretty relaxed.
Sniffy, sniffy.
Looks like he was stretching too. It's almost like they're sunbathing. Okay, well, we're going to give everybody a minute to put any comments in the chats or put any comments in the chat if you want to say something about any prehistoric or current animal life.
Okay. Uh, Maria, is it Maria or Marie? She asks, "Any book recommendations, please?"
Yeah, The Dinosaur Heresies by Robert T. Bacher. I mean, that's a really good book when it comes to the different theories he was also somewhat bringing back from previous paleontologists, like even like John Ostrom, Reverend Edward Hitchcock. You could even stick in like people such as Richard Owen and William Buckland.
This is Robert T. Bacher.
So this is the paleontologist that brought back the theory that dinosaurs were not just these, or were not cold-blooded, um, unintelligent, scaly, sluggish reptiles, but were actually quite agile or quick, very intelligent, likely feathered,
Which
warm-blooded.
which book?
Dinosaur heresies. There's also there was a character, or there was an actor that was
How do you spell that?
ER. I think it's ERRES. Um, IES.
Let's see what happens.
There it is. I think it was published, what, 1986?
What is it you like about this one?
Well, also like the different depictions of the dinosaurs. There were certain other paleo artists that were creating similar types of like dinosaur behavior when it came to different depictions of like different species of tyrannosaurs and ceratopsians, um, in conflict with each other, as well as like different species of sauropods and allosaurs, or different earlier coelophysids and the protomammals like the dicynodonts. But it was just a there's a lot of really good theories that started becoming much more welcomed at, or I guess a
This
bit
doesn't say
later.
that's the name of it.
Well, that yeah, I would just say the dinosaur heresies, but that is the cover of it. Um, let's see, what was the other thing?
That's better.
Like there's a specific character in Jurassic Park: The Lost World that like he's wearing a cowboy hat, and like he has like a very similar look to Bocker. It's basically playing him, like as like where am I trying to get at with this? Like he's sort of supposed to be the paleontological advisor for InGen at the like capture operation for, I think was it supposedly well, anyway, like that's
What was
basically.
there was a point behind that though. Why did they do that to him?
Oh, yeah, cut him off. I don't remember if it had something to do, like, with him and Jack Horner, or it might have been Jack Horner that wanted him possibly eaten in the movie, but, I'd have to go back over that. What is interesting is that he ended up seeing the movie and where he got eaten by the T-Rex, and he immediately sent a letter to Jack Horner saying, because Jack Horner is the other paleontologist that um was later on the paleontological advisor for Jurassic Park, but kept pushing the theory that T Rex was just a scavenger. And
Yet they
most other paleontologists would would have argued that no, he was likely a hunter and a scavenger, like most predators. Also, just being able to obtain enough food to sustain a carnivore weighing 9 tons, like the ability to continuously find fresh food on the landscape, and also sustaining amount, would practically be impossible, especially for possibly thousands of those individuals existing at once. So, where's I getting in with? Oh, So right after Walker had seen the movie, he sent a letter to Jack Horner saying, "See, I told you T-Rex was a hunter." Um, so that was pretty funny.
I was thinking, wasn't he a hunter through every movie? Or she?
Um, I think pretty much. I think it was just unfortunately like in, Jurassic Park and even to Jurassic World, if anything, it's preying on the smallest animals around, which would which is quite unrealistic considering it's going to be trying to find practically the largest herbivores that are in the area. Like it's very possible T-Rex would have probably hunted long-necked species such as Alamosaurus during the late Cretaceous, as well as going after the armored species of dinosaurs. Um, this depiction is probably supposed to be like Albertosaurus going after a Styracosaurus,
Is there
which,
another one that you would suggest?
um, hmm. Well, there's also one of the like the complete guide to prehistoric life, and not just like well, there's one that's based off of like the Walking with Dinosaurs or the Walking with series. But there's also one with a fish on it that has like that distinct picture with the Ephegia archosaur on it. At least it's one of the many animals in the book. It even goes over like different species of plants, but really just focusing on the animals. Um, I'm thinking of other books, but the specific titles are just not hitting me. That yeah, that's the Walking with series one.
That's not the good one.
Um, what do you mean?
Are you saying this isn't the good one?
No, I mean it is a good one. Um there are certain theories about different species of animals in it that now are classified as invalid, but I mean it's still a great book in general. I mean it is based off of the different creatures that were put into the Walking with series. Um
I'm trying to find another one.
yeah, it had like a fossil fish on it, or it was just called like prehistoric life.
There's a lot of those.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
It's probably done in like the early 2000s. No, this isn't it. I will say that if it was DK Eyewitness books, when it came to the different types of the few species of dinosaurs they would install into their series, it was the models like even for the time were just terrible in my opinion.
oh wait, are you referencing? Hold on.
There's some tiny book that's
This?
yep, that's it. That's one of them. Okay, well, I guess this is one of the better books that DK was a part of. I just when it comes to more or books in recent years, they're actually a bit more challenging to come upon. Um, I think there have been certain like specifically picture books which are great too. It's just that there's not a lot of information put out there about the different types of animals. And I think that's a problem when it comes to many paleo books in general is that there aren't a lot of pictures. The one that Barker wrote, there are depictions of different animals throughout the book, like coming into conflict with each other. They're not necessarily colored, but like for like the 1980s, it was showing a huge change in just the overall behavior that was being perceived by paleontologists such as Walker, Ostrom. Even at the time, you could throw in Philip Curry. Who else? So he's over at in Alberta. Um, Trying to think of what other paleontologists at the time.
Who has the best art books?
I don't have like I've seen the art of many paleo artists, but specific illustrator names there's almost none coming to my mind. I kind of have to review them.
But I meant, who does all the paintings from years back?
Many of them it was the author himself.
No, but I
Um,
meant, there's someone you mention all the time when I'm pulling up stuff for you. You say that it's the same person.
yeah, but I forgot their name. At least I think. It's not hitting me at the moment who that is.
The one that does all the paintings?
Oh, are you talking about Charles R. Knight?
Yes.
Oh, well, okay. I was thinking about like in um past 40 years. Um yeah, he was doing pictures like back in the late 1900s and I think even a bit into the late 1800s of different species of dinosaurs. His depictions are great for the time. I mean, there were also other paleo artists making their own depictions as well. But Charles R. Knight is just one of the more renowned ones. Yeah, that is the famous saber-toothed cat look. Um what is that? Like possibly 1940s or 1950s? Um,
She said she found a one about the prehistoric life. I just found an encyclopedia here on Amazon.
um
What language is the encyclopedia in? It's the complete illustrated encyclopedia of dinosaurs and prehistoric creatures.
I do recall this. Dougal Dixon. Yeah. Wow. Geez, this was what? Maybe late early 2010s that this came out. It's yeah, not a bad book. It has a number of dinosaurs in it. There aren't any, I think, prehistoric proto mammals or like even back into the Permian, reptiles, marine animals. Um, like before well, it's showing. Okay, there might have been Cenozoic animals, but I don't recall anything before dinosaurs. But yeah, it's not bad. I wonder if this might have been an updated version. I definitely didn't see this one. I am familiar with the other. Yeah, it's really not a bad book.
I'm trying to see if there's anything else to put up. A whole bunch of them are the same thing. I wonder if they're updated versions. Okay, I just saw it on Temu. Like, what?
Or is it that that mammal's supposed to be from the Mesozoic? It's just one of the larger species.
You know what this is?
I think I might have seen it, but not really. Could just be that I mean, that's a Triceratops porsus, not a Triceratops hortus skull. Um, I don't know. It looks familiar.
July 2014. That's what
Yeah,
she
maybe.
just said. It's funny. This book varies from 22.87 all the way up to $40. Oh, wait, $50. Forgot what I was looking for. Actually, this looks. Oh, this is something else. No. No, this it's showing different things. I
There,
was just wondering if they translated it.
I was trying to think of like certain an illustrator, like it was mainly a picture book, um, like from mid 2010s. Like we even got from the museum, but I can't remember the name of the author. It's the same one that did those depictions in the depictions in the Paleo Hall, but I don't remember his name.
She just said, "Imagine what I have to pay."
Oh, for hmm,
She said, "My currency is not dollar. It's more expensive here."
hmm. Could you possibly like look up Albertosaurus chasing um an Alberta ceratops? Yeah, I can spell it out.
Wait, chasing what?
Okay, so Albertaccer,
ZER?
like ceratops. Atops.
No. What, is it a book?
Yeah. But it's not named that. That's just what's in front of it. Maybe we'll give the title or bring up the book.
There is no widely known official mainstream book featuring Albertosaurus chasing out Albertoceratops.
Okay, so I'm probably mixing up the ceratopsian species. Um, hmm.
Hold on, I'll ask it something else. Is it an old book?
Not really. I mean,
It says
it's
1972 album of dinosaurs.
I think I've heard of that, but no, it was like mid 2010s or late 2010s.
Oh, this stuff doesn't give the age of it, but a moment in time with Albertosaurus.
No, it didn't mention any, I think, specific species of dinosaur in the front or on the title.
Oh, this is Camarasaurus, Rupert Oliver's dinosaur series. Oh,
Maybe like the
hold on, I'm dropping it down to see if I see anything. These aren't books. I don't know what these are. Huh. Well, not what you were asking for, but
that's Pechyrhinosaurus.
that's interesting because it says
Dinosaur Notebook, Albertoceratops. Yeah. Yeah, this is from the movie Walking with Dinosaurs, which when it came to the CGI, like the animation, I thought it was really good. It was just the storyline and voice actors that were not so great.
You're not referencing the 1999 series.
No, this is completely separate, and I'm also not referencing the 2025 or was it 2026 series? No, it's 2025. Yeah,
Oh, you mean that thing you said was terrible?
yeah, that was unfortunate. Hmm.
Anything else, Maria, before we close up? Okay, she said that's it.
I think I might have found the author. Um,
Hold on. Who was it?
I guess I'll just maybe Julius. So Juliust, like separate abbreviation, and then a separate name CSOTONYI.
Books. Well, that didn't help. Oh, is it this?
Aha, there we go.
Oh, I got it. Is that it?
There we go. That's him. Yeah, another ceratopsian. Um, yeah, this guy, like I think he still does different types of depictions. He created pretty good picture books, especially like for the late 2010s when beforehand you could say in some cases it was a bit challenging to find like different just good dinosaur picture books. Like usually it seemed that either there wasn't a lot of effort put into the animals or it was maybe even like a bit repetitive or of certain much older representations, and I mean referring to like a mix of 1950s and even like certain odd early 2000s representations. Like it was just a weird mix. I think like with what I was saying with the DK illustrations books earlier, just not too good of models.
I just like Knight's paintings.
Yeah, oh yeah, his paintings are really good too. Like especially his Ice Age looks. But also like even the Jurassic with the Allosaurus eating what looks to be pizza, but it's actually supposed to be it's probably some sauropod, like a Patasaurus that he's feeding on. And just like when you see like the different series of time in two separate pages. It's like we're showing Cretaceous or Jurassic 2 Cretaceous, I think.
Maria said, "Awesome. I love illustrations." Well, they're hard to find.
Yeah,
The reason we use the internet like this opposed to other ways is so people can find the same thing that we're pulling up for.
yeah, I think also when it comes to like the physical depictions of them are a lot more um tricky to discover, which is a bit odd. You would have expected this to be a lot more common.
Oh, wait a minute.
Okay, so thanks for joining. And from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guy Live Daily News. We're streaming on both Rumble, YouTube, and Kick. And remember that nothing is better than all animals all the time.